So what exactly is a blockchain? To understand blockchains, we need to step back a little so we can build up a momentum before we get to blockchains, so that by the time we explain blockchains, it is super easy to understand. Now, a transaction is an interaction between the user and the system as prepared by whoever built the system. For example, in social media like Facebook, a good example of a transaction is a like. When a user shares a comment or a post, and when a user comments. In Twitter, it has to be when a user tweets, they have made a transaction, or when they retweet. In GitHub, you have push, pull, merge, and a whole lot of things, transactions users can do on GitHub. In Bitcoin, users basically send money. So now we understand or have an idea of what a transaction is. Let us look at what a smart contract is. A smart contract is also known as a self-executing contract. A blockchain contract or digital contract is also known as crypto contract. But generally it is known as a smart contract. It was first described by somebody called Nick Szabo in 1996. Nick Szabo is a computer scientist, and when they were theorizing what a blockchain would be, they just called it a decentralized system. They were theorizing it, and he figured out that if there is a decentralized system, it will need something called smart contracts. Now, a smart contract is a computer program, basically a software, a block of code written by somebody. It directly controls the transfer of digital currencies or assets between parties under certain conditions. Smart contracts can only define the rules and penalties around an agreement in the same way that a traditional contract does, but also automatically enforces those obligations. So generally, I'm going to break this down, all this grammar, I'll break it down so you understand it straight up. Now, let us picture a system where I am betting against Trump that it will rain tomorrow. So I and Trump have a bet that it will rain tomorrow, and we both stake $50 to it. Now, this is supposed to be a transaction, but then the transaction could go either way, depending on who wins the bet. So, it's not a regular transaction that just goes straight up. You know, when you make a regular transaction, it kind of goes straight up and Trump receives an alert. But in a transaction, certain conditions has to fulfill for the transaction to go through. Otherwise, it has to go back to whoever initiated the transaction. So we have two participants in this transaction, and then there's an amount of money or currency that is in it. So we have $50, for instance. But if this was a blockchain wouldn't use a fiat currency. A fiat currency is a currency approved by a legal government. For instance, a good example of a fiat currency, that is FIAT currency, is US dollars, Canadian dollars, Euro, pounds, Naira, and Japanese yen, and so on and so forth. So these things are fiat currencies. But then blockchains use cryptocurrencies. They create their own currency. You understand? So in this case, this would be a cryptocurrency, but I just used dollars so that you understand. Now the second participant is Trump, and then the body of the contract, this is a transaction. The body of the transaction contains the details of the smart contract. So, and this is an instruction that must fulfill for the transaction to go through. So for me, I'm betting that it will rain tomorrow, and Trump is betting that it won't rain. So if it rains tomorrow, I get the money. But if it doesn't, Trump will get the money. And so let's say tomorrow, this smart contract will consult the weather API, and if the weather shows that it rained tomorrow, automatically Dave will get the money. But then if it doesn't rain, Trump will get it. So tomorrow shows up, and a heavy downpour occurs, and a heavy rain occurs and sweeps up everywhere, and I get my money. That is a smart contract. Another application of this is when an employer is trying to recruit an employee and wants to make sure that the employee delivers the product or meets up deadlines before a payment goes through. And on the employee's part, they don't really trust that the employer will pay. You understand? And the employer's part, the employer does not trust that the employee will deliver. So what they do is that the employer puts the money in an escrow account. So this is basically a smart contract is basically functioning like an escrow. You understand? So the employer pays the money into the smart contract. The smart contract holds the coins, and once the employee delivers, the money will go to the employee. But if the employee doesn't deliver within so and so time of the year, the money will go back to the employer. So that is a smart contract. So if anybody asks you any day what a smart contract is, you should be able to explain it simply and in a very clear and straightforward manner. But you should always understand that a smart contract is basically a software program, basically if and else statements that somebody wrote. You understand? So thank you very much. See you in the next video as we go in depth into really understanding what this blockchain is all about. Thank you. See you.